Tiffany Whitton was born on January 30, 1987, her mother Lisa Daniels, and her father divorced shortly after her birth. Mom described her daughter as carefree and restless while she was growing up in Conecuh, Georgia. However, she observed similar behavior of her daughter in the later stages of her life. When Tiffany was 2 years old, as her mother told Esquire magazine in 2016, "I found things in her toy drawer that did not belong to her." Her daughter explained that someone gave her these toys in kindergarten. Later, the mother said that over the years, her daughter became more and more a skilled liar. Upon reaching adulthood, Whitton became even more disobedient. She dropped out of high school in her second year and forgot about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She refused to leave the child, who was born to her as a result of teenage pregnancy. Later, she will say that this choice influenced her entire future life. By the 2008 year, she gave birth to another child, a girl. After that, she began to use drugs. First, she began to use the painkiller oxycodone, which is produced on the basis of opiates, and was caught stealing a pair of flip-flops from a Walmart supermarket. Periodically, she worked as a waitress or bartender. In her Facebook profile, she indicated that she works at the restaurant Farms and lives in Conecuh. Restaurants are called restaurants in which waitresses work half-naked. In March of the 2011 year, Whitton, who at that time lived in the North Georgia city of Dalton County, along with several other people, was arrested and taken into custody after breaking into someone else's house. Whitton told the police that the victim had stolen $60 from her the previous evening, and she was simply trying to return it. Investigators, however, suspected that it was payment for drugs that the victim was unable to deliver. At the end of the 2012 year, Tiffany received a short sentence in prison. Her mother, Lisa Daniels, raised her daughter Tiffany in conditions of cruelty with the best intentions and invited Tiffany that Tanya would talk to her daughter until she overcame her addiction. Tiffany's grandmother, named Anita Boyett, always kept in touch with her granddaughter and came to pick her up after her release from prison. Shortly after her release from prison, she enrolled in a drug addiction treatment course. After her release, she was able to give up drugs and get a job as a waitress at the IHOP restaurant in Marietta, Georgia. She had a relationship with a man, but it ended after he taught her about cheating. Her roommate kicked her out for stealing. After all this, she met Ashley Codell, nicknamed Red. The redhead raised his daughter alone. Together with Red, Tiffany started taking methamphetamine. After meth, Whitton switched to heroin. According to friends, Codell and Whitton often argued and swore. Because of them, the police were called more than once when they made noise while they were staying in a motel. However, they have never been arrested. When they started living in a trailer park, their quarrels were eventually kicked out of there. Tiffany's addiction seriously interfered with her work. She was often late for a shift at a restaurant. Sometimes needle marks were noticed on her hands and sent home. On the cameras installed in the restaurant, there were shots that showed her stealing something. In this regard, she was also fired from the IHOP. After this dismissal, her mother stopped all contact with her. The only one who continued to keep in touch with Tiffany was her grandmother. She allowed her and Codell to come to her house and wash things, and also tried to help in every possible way. By the end of the summer, Whitton and Codell, as well as his little daughter, began to live in the city of Powder Springs. On the evening of the 12th of September, they went to a friend, Stephen Weinstein, and took drugs with them. On the night of September 13th, at about midnight, they borrowed a car and went to the Walmart supermarket located on Highway 41, not far from the restaurant where Tiffany used to work. They arrived there at 1 o'clock in the morning and started shopping. A supermarket security guard on CCTV cameras saw Whitton and walking around the supermarket with a trolley for the next hour. Whitton was always on the move, even looking at the goods. She was constantly taking clothes off the shelves and changing them, walking a little behind Codal, who was choosing clothes for his daughter and a portable music speaker. At the same time, the guards came to the conclusion that Whitton had hidden some things in order to take them out of the store unnoticed, which she had done many times before. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Whitton wanted to continue shopping, but Codal in turn said that they needed somewhere else, after which Tiffany went to the checkout with a stern look. After Codal paid for his things, he put the cart back in place and headed for the exit. He paid in cash and he had a big wad of money with him. Already at the exit, Codal and Whitton were met by security guards and informed that Tiffany had stolen $20 worth of clothes. One of them grabbed Tiffany by the strap of her bag to prevent her from running away. Codal stopped at the door, facing the exit. The CCTV footage shows Tiffany seemingly calling Codal but getting no response. Whitton let go of her bag, kicked off her flip-flops, and ran out the door. Neither Coda nor the Walmart staff followed her. No one else saw her. The video from the supermarket shows that the security guard is standing in the doorway and waiting for Whitton to return, as she ran away, throwing her bag and shoes. Codal, who was passively watching Tiffany's detention, can be seen talking to her. However, he later told people that he took a gun, a pistol or a knife into the car where his phone was charging, and went to deal with the guards who allowed Tiffany to escape. In the year 2016, he confessed that he told this story only to impress people who visited him in prison. Codal says that shortly after Whitton ran out of the store, he went out to the parking lot to look for her. He didn't go to the car because there were drugs there, and he was afraid that they would be found and he would be arrested. He looked around the nearby shops, and after a while, there was a IHOP where Tiffany had previously worked part-time. Wu remembers meeting Codal sitting on a bench outside a restaurant sometime after 2 in the morning. Fuller didn't see Tiffany either and told Codal to call her on the phone and find her. He said he needed to charge his phone and showed it to Shayla. Then she asked how he was going to look for her if he was just sitting in a restaurant. To which he replied that his friends should come for him soon, together with whom they would go on a search. An hour and a half later, Weinstein, accompanied by 2 men, took Codal with them. Weinstein said that Codal, whom he describes as a piece of shit and a complete jerk, but who can make pleasant company, told him about Whitton's disappearance, including how he, threatening a Walmart security guard with a gun, demanded to let her go. Weinstein doubted that. However, he believed that he was afraid to go to the car where the drugs were, and did not know where Tiffany Whitton had gone. After returning to Weinstein's house, where Codal thought the girl went according to his own words, they went around the neighborhood to look for Tiffany. Weinstein said, "I felt that most of what he was saying was true." The next morning, Codal drove home to Powder Springs, where they had previously lived. Over the next few days, he tried to track her down, called her exes, called all hospitals and prisons, which is confirmed by phone records. 2 weeks later, he told a probation officer he knew that he hadn't been able to find Whitton since that night. The recordings confirm this conversation. Codal also washed the car, which was later noticed by investigators. However, he insisted that he did it regularly. Codal, and later Tiffany Whitton's mother, made attempts to find Tiffany by their own efforts over the next few months. They believed that she was alive and would eventually return, because in the past she had already disappeared and then returned. In January of the 2014 year, after Tiffany had never contacted her mother Lisa Daniels or other family members, they contacted the police. Caudle did not inform Tiffany's family of her disappearance, nor did he report it to the police. Lisa Daniels, who had not heard from her daughter since their quarrel in August, was used to her daughter's prolonged absence, and was waiting for her to appear soon. In November, a lawyer for Walmart wrote a letter of demand stating that Ethan had stolen items worth $150 from the store that night. This letter was sent to her grandmother's house, whose address Tiffany indicated as a postal address. It was not the first time such letters had been sent to her. However, the fighter's grandmother immediately realized that something was wrong this time. The fighter also knew that her granddaughter had taken drugs, and also that she had committed shoplifting while still under the law on parole. She thought that her granddaughter might be hiding from the authorities. However, she called Caudle and found out not only about the incident that occurred on September 13th, but also that he had not seen Tiffany since that night. "I told my daughter about it, that is, Tiffany's mother. It turned out that she was looking on the Facebook page for at least some clues that could shed light on the whereabouts of her daughter." Tiffany was a very active user of social networks, but on the 1st of September, she suddenly stopped posting new entries. Messages from her friends and acquaintances said that they had not heard of Tiffany and were very worried. Daniels called Caudle before the day he told her that he had called prisons and hospitals in the first days after Tiffany's disappearance. Daniels suggested that her daughter will appear closer to the winter holidays. However, this did not happen, so in January of the 2014 year, Daniels and the fighter turned to the Marietta City Police. The first detective who was involved in the case, according to Tiffany's mother, did not show much interest in the case. What she had feared had happened. After learning about his daughter's troubled past, the detective said that most likely the case will be closed when her daughter returns on her own or is arrested somewhere. By the end of January, the case was transferred to another detective, a woman named Johnny Mueller, who would later say that after the first conversation with the girl's mother, she realized that the case was not as simple as it seemed. Mueller assumed that Whitton was dead, and the delay in filing a missing persons report with the police made it difficult to conduct an effective investigation. This case had already become unsolved before it came to us, after a conversation with the employees who saved as proof of their innocence. Mueller began to suspect in March. After Mueller's investigation, the Drug Enforcement Task Force raided the house in Powder Springs, where Tiffany Whitton lived. Officers found marijuana, methamphetamine, and syringes. All of this was lying in the chest of dog excrement and used needles. 8 people, including Caudle, were arrested for involvement in these finds. The daughter and another child are temporarily placed in a shelter of the local social service agency. Many other residents of this Tiffany house after the search of the house in July 2014. The police received a warrant to search the house of Caudle's mother in Marietta. Despite extensive searches using search dogs, nothing could be found in the 2015 year. Caudle confessed to possession and intent to distribute methamphetamine. Possession of firearms while serving a suspended sentence. He could have been sentenced to 20 years in prison for refusing to fully cooperate with the investigation into the disappearance of Tiffany Whitton. He is currently serving time in prison. In the middle of 2015, the case was transferred to the third detective, after Mueller, desperate to solve it, left the detective bureau and became a teacher at the police academy. Her follower Mike Freer managed to achieve what was a major breakthrough in the case. The district attorney of the cop said that the meth dealer he was trying to plant had heard from some of his friends that after Tiffany disappeared, he and his friends went to Lake Lana in North Atlanta. And they threw a barrel filled with concrete from a bridge called Bethany. The informant accurately described the damage to the bridge, which corresponded to what Freer found when he visited it. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources launched sonar and found a large object underwater, at a depth of 12 meters under the site of damage to the bridge. When the state patrol divers went down to look, it turned out that this object was a large piece of concrete that had fallen off during the construction of the bridge. To date, this is the last official certificate of the search for Tiffany Whitton in the 2016 year. The case was transferred to the Unsolved Cases Investigation Department. In April 2016, Esquire magazine published an article about the disappearance of Tiffany Whitton. Reporter Tom Younat was interested in a case that was not what is sometimes called the missing white woman syndrome, when the media cover such cases with special attention. Even though Tiffany is white, Unit assumed that such cases are not considered because of the victim's troubled past. The media, as a rule, prefer to talk about white, beautiful, and above all innocent women, wrote Unit. He chose the Whitton case among the stories of 13 similar women. All of them have gone missing in the last 3 years. 3 were found dead. Daniels said that she tried to interest the producers of some series that are devoted to the disappearances of people. She wanted her daughter to be illuminated, but she was told that they were not interested in it. In addition to Daniels, Unit interviewed Ballet's grandmother Cola Fuller Weinstein and all the detectives who investigated the case. The journalist noted not only the lie that Caudle took out a weapon when Tiffany was detained by theft prevention officers, but also caught him on another one. Caudle said he called Tiffany's phone shortly after she disappeared. However, in fact, her phone was in her purse, which she threw at Walmart. Fuller confirmed this statement, as he showed it to her after she suggested that he call Whitton when they met at the IHOP restaurant. There is also no record in the phone call log that Caudle called her number. However, this led to another revelation. According to Tiffany's half-brother named Blake, she congratulated him on Facebook on his birthday 5 days later. Daniels reported that Caudle used Whitton's phone to give the impression that she was still alive. However, Blake told Ben that she had called him. Blake remembered that the call came through the Facebook app. He was sure it was his stepsister, as she even called him by his childhood nickname. Although Unit believed Blake wasn't lying, he wasn't sure if Blake was accurate in his recollections, possibly confusing Facebook posts with an earlier phone conversation. The full translation of the article from Esquire magazine will be available on the website. Read it, it's very interesting. The link will be in the description. Daniels believed for a long time that Tiffany was dead and Caudle was involved in her death, due to the fact that he did not inform her or the police about the disappearance. He knows what happened to her, and he knows where she is. I have no doubt about that. Daniel became even more convinced of her suspicions when she watched a video of a prison conversation between Caudle and his visitor. In the video, he waves a copy of the poster about Tiffany's disappearance, which Mueller brought to him, and points it at the lens. "They think I actually killed that bitch," he says, and then laughs. After the prison interview, Mueller told the detective who conducted this interview that she had no doubt that the murder was committed by Caudle. According to Daniels, Caudle dragged Whitton into his car by force. They fought and he killed her. Or she had an overdose and didn't resist. However, the district attorney said that overdose is atypical for such cases. After this, victims usually do not disappear. Attempts to establish Caudle's guilt encounter difficulties because of the small amount of time that had passed between when he left Walmart and when Fuller saw him outside the IHOP restaurant. In order to kill Whitton, whether intentionally or accidentally, and then hide her body so well that no one could find it with such a thorough search, it takes a monstrous skill and remarkable skills. Daniels also believes that her daughter should have resisted vigorously if someone had tried to kill her. At the same time, Caudle says that cameras in several stores in the area could record him driving along Highway 41 to the restaurant. But there is no such record. She just ran. I do not know what happened to her, says Caudle. It is said about him that he responds with irony to the words of those people who believe that Whitton may still be alive. The couple often argued, quarreled, but there is no evidence of physical violence against each other. According to Caudle, if he is guilty, it is not a crime, but an inability to treat Tiffany properly. Anyway, what happened to Tiffany Whitton that night is unknown. And people who may know something refuse to provide at least some information.